All right. Well, let's get into our last news topic for the night. Microsoft has revealed that they are going to be using, or that they're currently working on and using, a new type of AI generative model designed for uh, gameplay ideation, as they have put it. Basically, generating both video game visuals and controller actions. Um, there is a bunch of technical speak here. I'm not going to get into all that. I will say that they do have in the article, and this is from Microsoft directly, the blog. They do have videos displaying what some of this AI generated gameplay looks like. But of course, you can obviously add anything to this as you see needed. But my understanding from what I read is essentially that this is something that's just intended to help them with coming up with more ideas and ways to make things work. But it's not necessarily something where, at least at the moment, they're developing full games using AI. They're just kind of using it to aid the process. So, yeah. What are your thoughts?
And also,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and then also, I can't remember if it was here in the link I sent you, or if there was something that I had seen shortly or sometime later on, but there is also talks to be using this AI to get games to run on, or get older games to run on newer hardware. And I don't know if that is essentially sort of, they didn't specify how it was going to work, but I don't know if that's something they were thinking about aiming toward consoles, or specifically, I guess you could say Xbox. We're trying to get older Xbox games to run on newer hardware, or something that would just apply across the board, where even say on PC, where older PC games would be able to run on newer hardware. But yeah, that's I guess a supplement to what you stated about how they're trying to apply this new AI. But as far as my thoughts on it go, I really don't know why we need to have AI in everything, in every aspect, where I really feels like it's really, to a degree, killing creativity. I mean, they say when they want to help with the process and stuff, and I mean, sure, you might say maybe this might help to a degree with efficiency, but I don't know what, I mean, granted, I've never developed a game before, but I don't know how using AI could help with trying to develop a game or anything like that. And I don't know, will this even really help with game development at all? Because if would using AI help or help prevent games from being buggy on launch? Would using AI help with ensuring that the games are being stable, that they're optimized? Because I really don't see that being a sort of benefit, because I mean, considering the fact that I can't remember what it was. There's a term. Oh gosh, man, I really wish I remember this term was. And granted, this was really more so with chat language, with chat LLMs, but essentially it was just sort of false answers, or I can't remember if it was like called echoes or something like that, but essentially, even though it seemed like it makes sense, the data that the AI provided was false, even though it rationalized the answer that it provided. So I really don't know if something similar could happen like that with game development, which, I mean, sure, you might say, oh yeah, this is helping us develop the games, and it's helping us be more efficient, it's helping us be better. And could that really just introduce its own unique problems that you've never encountered before in development? Um, and I mean, and outside of that, without going to conspiracy theory, I just think that AI is entrenched in too many things. And then also with regards to um, having games, or trying to have older games run on newer hardware, that's probably the only thing I could possibly say it could be good as far as trying to help with compatibility. But would it, would it really work out well? Or because I mean, I'm not entirely certain if someone said that it's not even completely a compatibility thing, or is rather it's partially being recreated to run. So are you really just having a game that is using AI generated textures and stuff to run on your hardware, rather than having something that is, I guess you could say, emulated in a sense? If you were, I guess, would you rather have a game that is using some weird, janky AI textures, or just run something that could be just emulated, um, or maybe even just try doing backwards compatibility for games? Like, what is the gain that you would get from doing this? Like, would that be worth doing over just trying to get backwards compatibility, or just trying to emulate it? Um, so that's probably the only acceptable case, but I don't know if that's something that I would say would be worth it in the long run. But just all in all, I'm not a fan of this, and I just don't like this at all. I mean, I feel like this is just unnecessary, and just weird in general.
Yeah. So I agree with everything you said. To kind of add my own thoughts to it more specifically, I could see AI. I mean, for like the making games compatible, old games compatible with new hardware. I could see it being advantageous if it was something along the lines of like basically AI is used to generate a compatibility layer, something like that, in order to make it work. Take essentially generate a new version of Proton that would cause the game to be able to work. If it was able to do something like that, I think that would be great. I mean, like, take the extra work out of it. I mean, in general, Proton's been great. Most games work on the Steam Deck, but obviously depending on whether they actually run well depends on how demanding the game is. I could see AI potentially being a way that they could improve optimization for some games. But with all that being said, I don't like the idea of using AI in general with developing games. Looking at the examples of like in that article they showed, okay, this is the actual game that we played, showing like they did, I think they said it was 11 seconds of actual gameplay. And let me see, I can't remember the name of the game that they were talking about. It was Bleeding Edge.
Bleeding Edge.
So they like did like 11 seconds as a demonstration for the AI, and then the AI used those 11 seconds in order to generate essentially what they thought based on whatever models they're using to estimate what the game would look like if it was continued from that gameplay sample. And the thing is that looking at these examples, like it's obviously it's come a long way from where it was before in terms of how the AI generates the stuff. But the AI generated stuff is always just off. It's off I mean, sometimes it's off by a lot, and sometimes it's off just enough to be like, this just doesn't feel right. This is weird. It just, it's not quite like Black Hole Sun from the from the 90s. If I mean, if you've never seen the music video for that, look it up, from Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun. That is a trippy music video, but it's all, generated. I mean, it wasn't AI generated, it was actually intentionally made. Um, but like looking at the gameplay examples that they showed that were AI generated, it's like all of the animations were just kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Shaky, I guess you could say. Like the way the lines move and stuff, like it just didn't feel right. And I found that also, when you've seen like AI generated videos and that sort of thing, there's always just something a little bit off. Like there was actually a really funny one that I saw that was it was one that, oh no, it's Alex watched on his stream, and I just saw the clip of it. Of it was an AI generated video of ponies defending, or selling people on the PS5, and they're you talk about the greatest exclusive of PlayStation, 70 million console sales, and it's just like an entirely AI generated video. And anyway, stuff like that where you can tell by looking at it, it's like it looks really close to reality, but it's just off enough to where it's like, I mean, you can tell that it's AI generated. And with this gameplay, of course, this wasn't anywhere near quite that much, but it had a lot more movement, whereas most of those AI generated things have like very, very limited amounts of movement involved in them. And I don't know, these gameplay samples were just strange to me. And I'm not sure how much of them were actual, like, this is the AI guessing how the gameplay would look. So I think that's what it was doing, versus it being something more along the lines of, okay, we'll take this gameplay sample and then create a game based on that, and you can move around with this AI generated game essentially. And I mean, I think it was more the former than the latter, but I don't like it because I really feel like the direction they're trying to move is getting to the point where they use AI instead of people to create these games. And while to some degree, I mean, there are some aspects that I could see that being beneficial, particularly if it was just going through, cleaning up code, trying to, make it so that things work better. I don't ever want anything that's 100% AI generated. Even if they improve all the animations and it doesn't have that weird, shaky, kind of fuzzy look to it. Even if it looks really good, I just don't want that happening, because you lose something when you don't have that human, the internal spirit of a person that goes into, that's involved in the creation of something. Even like the most bland, basic, generic looking games, there's still more to them in terms of that human creativity than you get with AI generated stuff. Now, granted, there are, of course, developers who will just reuse a bunch of assets, and it's not all that creative. They're not putting in all the work, but you can still look back at the original resources and say these original resources were created by someone, and you can still tell, even if the game itself looks and feels generic. I'd rather have something that looks and feels generic than have something that's AI generated and just lacks that soul. And I feel like even the most bland and boring games I've seen, like that Mind's Eye game that we saw at the PlayStation State of Play last week, it's still like, you still could tell that there was a human creativity put into it. I mean, even outside of the cutscenes, yes, it was generic. It was very GTA like and uninspired as far as I was concerned when it came to the gameplay. But it's still, you could still tell that people created it and that it wasn't just something made by, artificial intelligence. So yeah, the TLDL of that is I don't like AI usage in games unless it's just used for things like compatibility layers and optimizing code.
And you actually reminded me of a couple different things. And I guess the first one is that, I mean, I don't think this technically really counts as AI, but the only real way that something could be tolerated is through procedural generation, because you have that type of aspect in roguelikes. And that's something that's fine because even though it's random, there is still at least some cohesion. And in fact, there was a video actually a long time ago because something similar happened. There was a channel I watched that talks about like different Kickstarters that are possibly scams and stuff like that. And there was a sort of console called OTOM, which was the idea was like having a console that used AI to make games. Yeah, I mean, no one in their right mind, really funded it. The game, I mean, the thing flopped, but the person talked about the fact that think about like this with creativity versus using AI. Imagine Super Mario Maker. Do you think you could have any of the levels that were made by real people, especially the ones that have those real weird mechanics and like you have to do all these types of jumps and stuff? Could an AI do something like that by itself? No, that's the type of creativity that comes from a human. So if you have AI trying to do some sort of procedural generation, you won't have that creativity where something's like, okay, those neat tricks, that's something that only a human mind could think of because AI just takes what's already there and tries to do something with it. And it might be random. It may not make sense. It might just work well enough that it counts as a level, but it won't have anything inspired in it.
Right. Yeah, it's like
that's just something I wanted to tackle.
I mean, you could never. I firmly believe that an AI could never make a Kojima game, make an actual game that's as creative as what he does. Because the thing about this man is that, I mean, yes, his stuff is weird, but he writes it in such a way that it makes sense within the universe of the game. And furthermore, mechanically, those games are just like, this is undoubtedly created by someone who is really smart and really creative, and they came up with these cool ideas of how to sometimes do mechanics that nobody's thought of. Like Death Stranding, the mechanics in that game, while on the surface they seem like they're overly simple, when you play it, it's like this game has a lot of depth to it. And it's super interesting as a game, in addition to the story itself. I mean, like, I remember when I first saw the trailer for Death Stranding, of course, none of us had any idea what the game was about. Even by the time we got the last trailer, nobody knew what the game was about. They had theories, but nobody had any idea until they actually played the game. And then, as with most of Kojima's stories, or really with all of his stories, it made sense. And I mean, ultimately, this comes down to, of course, you and I are both coming from a Christian perspective, and we believe that men and women, that all people are made in the image of God, and that's where that creativity comes from. It's because we have a creative creator who created everything, that we also have that that's one of the aspects of the image of God, is that creativity that comes out. Yes, some people are more creative than others, but everyone has still something that distinguishes them from just fake intelligence. So that's all I have.
Nothing additional from me.